Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Overtime 2022 playoff coverage. I'm your host, T Money, and it has been an amazing 2 weeks of NFL football. Let's walk you guys through the standings real quick. At the end of last week, Candyman was in last place at 3-3. Brebs and Big Bob were tied for third place at 4-2, and I was tied with the Robo for first place at 5-1. Let's see how we held up after a wild divisional round. Candyman went 1-3 to end up at a dismal 4-6. That is just brutal. Brebs and Big Bob also went 4-3, so they're tied at 5-5 now. Meanwhile, the Robo, who was in first place just a week ago, got all 4 games wrong, and now he is sitting at 5-5. Me, well, you guys know why they call me T-Money. I went 3-1, and I'm sitting at 8-2 right now. Let me remind you guys, there are only 3 games left in these playoffs, so the only way for someone to even catch me is for me to get all 3 games wrong and someone to run the table. So let's see if that's possible. Before we head to our picks, we are going to go ask people about how they felt about the events that have gone on so far. Let's get the most surprising AFC team and most disappointing AFC team. Candyman, start us out.
Well, Theo, thanks for that great intro. Candyman's a little bitter. He's not sweet right now. Don't get too cocky, Theo. Robo, great to see you back on the show. Miss you, man. Can't wait for your picks.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, always. So let's go to the AFC and go to our most surprising team. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I'm rolling with them with Coach Taylor. Joey Burrow got done at LSU. He's in the AFC Championship game. You have Mr. Chase, Joey Mixon getting it done. If you think about the AFC North, look at the quarterbacks in there. You got Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. Ben Roethlisberger was holding court in there for 18 years. He's just retired. Baker Mayfield had a down year a little bit. So shifting from the most surprising team, the Bengals in the state of Ohio, the most disappointing team would have to be the Browns, who made the playoffs last year. They almost beat the Chiefs. You have Jarvis Landry. You had Odell Beckham. You had a great tandem of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield, and they don't even make a 500 record this year. So biggest surprise in the AFC, Bengals. Biggest disappointment, Browns, same state. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, a ton of people would have predicted the Browns to be the ones playing in this game this week against Kansas City. It really is crazy to see what's gone on there. Brebs, it was a rough week for you. What do you have to say here?
Well, it was a rough division round. Almost went 0-4. But for the most surprising team for the AFC, I'm going to agree with Mr. Candia. I also said the Bengals as well. You know, we had some talks like in the offseason with Jamar Chase. Oh, he can't catch these simple balls in preseason, but it all blended well. Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor, the whole team throughout the season got better and better and led to the championship game. And for the most disappointing team, it has to be the Colts. So, you have a really good head coach, a really good offensive line, a good defense. Jonathan Taylor broke out, basically having an MVP type season this year. And all that just to be eliminated by the Jacksonville Jaguars on the last game of the season. So awful.
Yeah, that was a wild finish to that season. I'm sure we'll be hearing about the Colts again before this is done. Big Bob, what do you say here?
For me, I gotta agree with them as the Bengals. They've just destroyed, and I didn't believe in them in the playoffs. I didn't think they would do well either games, and they've just destroyed between Joey Burrow is just amazing and blows my mind every game I've seen him in, because I don't think he's going to do well because, 2 games ago against the Raiders, I thought the Raiders had it clear, and I guess they don't. So I think they've definitely shocked me the most for the AFC. And with the most disappointing team, I'm going to say the Titans on this, because I thought they had probably the best running back in the league last year, Derrick Henry, and then he got injured, and you could sort of see through the season, and that sort of distracted them. And last week they didn't play that well, so I thought it was disappointing because I thought they would have done really well through the whole season.
All right, Robo, it's great to have you with us for the first time this year. So let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think we all have Bengals across the board for the most surprising team in the AFC. I think at this point they're just riding that high that they have and their momentum going into these divisional championship rounds right here. See if they can, make it to the playoffs, or I'm sorry, the Super Bowl here. As far as the most disappointing team in the AFC, I'd have to go with the Jaguars this year. I mean, they kind of reminded me of, Detroit over the last 20 or 30 years there. Not really getting it done when they needed to. And just in years past, comparing them, it was just a big disappointment across the board.
Yeah, I mean, that whole Urban Meyer situation was definitely a bit of a shipwreck there. But, okay, now, as I transition to my picks, I'm going to say that, I generally find myself to be a pretty humble person. But I called this Bengals thing all the way. I mean, I picked them in the preseason. I picked them both weeks here. So they're not a surprise for me. I saw this thing coming. My most surprising team is actually going to be the Buffalo Bills. Now, this one's going to sound interesting. I did not really believe in this team. I thought that Kansas City would kind of go in and, blow them out of the water a little. And they hung right in there, and they really only lost because of a coin toss. So I was incredibly impressed by Josh Allen and the Bills, and I think they should be viewed as being just as good as anyone else in this AFC, as the Candyman is pointing out there.
They're only going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heartbreaking loss. Heartbreaking. Just gut-wrenching.
I was looking forward
I know,
to it.
yeah. We could probably devote a whole show to just breaking down that game. That was just so incredible to watch.
I was looking forward to breaking that table this year, but I guess they'll have to wait till next year.
Next year, definitely. Let's hope. But if we have to talk disappointments, I'm going to agree with Brebs and go with the Colts. I had really high hopes for Carson Wentz this team, and it just did not work out. I mean, I think they just regroup with a different quarterback next year. Maybe things are better. They've got a ton of talent, but that was brutal for them. I'm going to lead us off going into the NFC now. My surprise team out of the NFC would have to be San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry for the pause there. The 49ers are an interesting team because I knew they had talent. I knew they had the ability to win, but I did not think they'd be I didn't think they'd be winning the way they have been winning, which is I did not think they'd be relying this much on their defense. And like when they drafted Trey Lance in the offseason, you would have thought, okay, they have all this talent on offense, and they'll, just plug Trey Lance in and, blow teams away offensively. And that just hasn't happened, I knew their defense was talented, but just seeing them go into Lambeau and hold Green Bay to, I believe, 10 points was just incredible. And I'll be talking about them more later, but it was great to see what San Francisco did. Disappointment would have to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though. It's crazy to look at a team that went to the divisional round and say that they were a disappointment, but when you have Tom Brady, it's Super Bowl or bust, and it's just so surreal in my eyes that we're not seeing this team play in this conference championship. So that'll be it for me. Let's move on to you, Robo.
Yeah, I think my most disappointing team in the NFC was definitely the Saints this year. I think with Breeze retiring and stuff, and they bringing in a new quarterback, they weren't able to, shift their offense to play with the quarterback. And although their record wasn't that bad, I just think that they were a disappointment. They had some potential, and they just didn't live up to it. As far as my surprising team, I would have to go with the 49ers there. I've always liked the 49ers since I've been a little kid behind the Bills, but they needed that win in the last week of the season over the Rams. They were behind. They came back, and with a couple other losses, they were in the playoffs. And now they just made some crazy upsets the last couple of weeks. And let's see what's going to happen this Sunday. So it should be interesting because it's going to be a rematch of that Week 18 game against the Rams there.
Yeah, that one was definitely a thriller. And Deebo Samuel, I know I've said his name so many times in the last 2 weeks, but he's just been incredible. Big Bob, I think I have a feeling I know what your most disappointing team is going to be, but let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, for sure. My most disappointing team is the Cowboys. I mean, they did so well in the normal season, and I was expecting them to blow away the San Francisco 49ers, but they didn't. And there were certain points in that game where they looked like they never played football. So I was really disappointed. But for my most shocking team was definitely the Rams. I was not expecting them to win that. I thought Brady was going to do well, and they showed that they can outpower Brady. So I definitely think that they have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
All right, definitely. Always great to get, a realistic Cowboys fan. It's not a very common occurrence out in the wild. Brebs, let's head over to you.
All right, now for the NFC side, the most surprising team is actually, in my opinion, the Eagles, because due to the fact of just making the playoffs, yeah, you can say, oh, they're 0-7 against 500 teams or better, but to have a first-year coach in Nick Sirianni and a first-year starting fully for Jalen Hurts, and the way they were able just to evade and go through the NFL just to make their way to the playoffs, winning the games that they were supposed to win, and making them play, even though the Bucs basically eliminated them like it was nothing. But still, it's a huge accomplishment for them. And for the most disappointing team, to me, easily the Cardinals. You had throughout the season, people were saying, "Oh, this team's going to the Super Bowl." You have Kyler Murray, D-Hop, one of the best duos in the league. J.J. Watt having a great year. Finally going to the contending team after spending his whole life on this dump of a team. But yeah, so. They could have done better. The injuries hurt them throughout the season, and it was just a big disappointment for them.
All right, Candyman, you've had a rough streak of picking teams, but it's been particularly bad in the NFC. So I'm sure you probably have some strong opinions on surprise and disappointment. So let's hear what you have to say.
Wow, it's a great lead-in. I love it. I'm going to talk about the Cardinals like Brebs did, but I'm going to call them my most surprising team. I mean, I think they were 10-2 in their first 12 games. I don't think people expect them to be the juggernaut that they were, even though they lived to the playoffs. Kyler Murray was almost an MVP candidate through those first 10 to 12 games. DeAndre Hopkins is lights out when he's healthy. They signed J.J. Watt. Didn't really make a difference. Barely played. He thought he might play in that playoff game, but he didn't. But most surprising, the fact that they might be a force to be reckoned with in the next year or two here. My biggest disappointment in the NFC, playoff-wise, Packers. Enough said there. But overall, it's got to be the Seattle Seahawks. With Russell Wilson and Coach Carroll probably going through a divorce right now. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I think they crawled into Week 18 at 6-10. I don't even know what happened in the last game of the season. At one point, Geno Smith's their quarterback. So overall, in the NFC, biggest disappointment, I'd have to say the Seattle Seahawks, who did play in the playoffs last year against the Rams. So that's my take on the NFC. Biggest surprise and biggest disappointments.
All right. So now that we have recapped what's happened this year, let's move on to what's going to happen. Our first matchup is going to be between the Cincinnati Bengals in their first AFC championship since 1989, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are hosting their fourth consecutive AFC championship. So a lot of interesting history. That's actually the first time it's happened in the history of the league, by the way. So, Candyman, does Joe Burrow keep things rolling for the Bengals here?
No, the luck runs out. I mean, he got sacked 9 times, I believe, against the Titans, and they still won. It's a great story. I hope he has a great 5 to 10 year run as a dominant force in the AFC North, and hopefully they'll make the playoffs a lot. And they're a great story. But this Kansas City Chiefs team is too good. You saw the Super Bowl last week, ladies and gentlemen. Bills at Kansas City, overtime, all the craziness. Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes in a showdown for the ages. And there's no way the Chiefs lose this game. Enough said. You can move on to the next contestant on The Price is Right or Wrong.
We'll see. Based on your picks, it may end up being wrong here. Not trying to hate.
Wow.
Not saying. All right. So much of it just relies on beating Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, we saw what he did with 13 seconds. So really, it comes down to them having the ball last. Brebs, do you think they can do that?
I think the Chiefs are just gonna win this game. For the past 4 years, every playoff game Mahomes has played in has been at home, and it's very tough to win at Arrowhead. The only team that's done that in Mahomes' era was the Patriots, who won the Super Bowl against the Rams back like 3 or 4 years ago. But anyways, the Chiefs, they looked really good. It was a back and forth game last week, but I just don't see Joe Burrow. They have had a great year, the Bengals. I know I keep doubting them, keep picking against them every week, but the luck is going to run out here, and the Chiefs are going to move on to their third Super Bowl in a row.
All right, Big Bob, you agree here?
No, I don't. I keep picking against the Bengals, and it doesn't work for me. So I think that with the last 2 weeks they've played, and then Joey Burrow looks like he's just doing great, and the Chiefs got lucky last week. I mean, they played well, but it definitely just came down to overtime. So I think that I have the Bengals on this one.
All right, I like to see it. I like to see the Bengals getting some love finally. Robo, are you going to agree with Big Bob?
No, I'm going to have to disagree with that, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Candyman said. I think, we saw a better game last week against the Bills and the KC than the Super Bowl is going to be. So I really think whoever won that game last week, whether it was the Bills or KC, is just going to win it all. So I have a feeling it's going to be a blowout. So I'm going to take KC on this one.
Okay, interesting that you brought up that you think it would be a blowout. Let's head back to you two, Candyman and Brebs, real quick. Real quick answer: can the Bengals at least stay in the game?
The defense is suspect for the Chiefs, so in the first half, maybe yes. Third to fourth quarter, Chiefs roll and just find a way like they always do.
What do you say, Brebs?
Yeah, exactly what Candyman was saying. I mean, like, the Chiefs, they're just going to roll over the Bengals, to be honest. Like, the Chiefs just have that mindset of just like, oh, we're going to overpower you. No matter who you have on your team, we're still the better team in the end. And we're at Arrowhead, and this is our house, and we're going to show you why this is our house.
All right, that's interesting. I think you guys can probably guess where I'm going here. I am absolutely picking the Cincinnati Bengals to make it back to the Super Bowl for the first time in over 30 years. It's going to happen. So many people have doubted this team. They keep winning, and they're going to continue. It just feels like a team of destiny at this point. The Chiefs defense, I'm just not high on it at all. And especially with Tyrann Mathieu, I believe, being questionable at the moment. We saw what Gabriel Davis did as soon as he left the game. Mm-hmm. He's just such a huge part of that Chiefs secondary, and without him, there's really not much talent there. And if you look at the Bengals, you got 3 800-yard receivers in Boyd, Chase, and T. Higgins. So I absolutely think Cincinnati is heading the Super Bowl. Now that we've gotten the AFC done, let's head over to the NFC, where we have a divisional matchup in the championship game. This should be a fun one. We have the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. We've already kind of covered how they matched up in Week 18, and San Francisco pulled off an incredible second half comeback. Brebs, do you think we can get another one of those results?
I think the Rams, of how dangerous they are right now, they're going to beat the Niners. Even though throughout the regular season, the Niners beat them twice, but the Rams, I'm telling you right now, they're dangerous. Maybe they almost let Tom Brady and the Bucs come back because Cam Akers and Cooper Kupp decided to fumble because they feel like it. But anyways, the Rams, they're gonna find a way to beat the Niners. They're gonna get over that hump. Sean McVay is gonna have this team ready. Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp, and Matt Stafford is just going to lead this team to the promised land.
Okay, that's an interesting pick. We have a Super Bowl pick already, a week early. Big Bob, do you follow that sentiment there?
Yeah, I 100% think it's going to be Rams. I think this is going to be a blowout game. I don't think the 49ers have a remote chance. I think by the way that the Rams have been playing, they've looked amazing, and I think 49ers have gotten lucky both games.
Okay, so some interesting takes there. No one, neither of you guys really giving credit to that defense. Robo, do you think the defense can keep them in the game?
The 49ers defense?
Yes.
I think they've been carrying their team for a while now, to be honest with you. So if the offense can score some goals, and not goals, but touchdowns here, they might have a chance. But it's really Stafford. He's a great quarterback, and now that he's no longer with Detroit, he's really got that. He can really shine, and that's what he's been doing all year. So I think that in Week 18 they got lucky there. Any given Sunday they came back from down. Last week they got a pick six, which helped carry them and stuff. So if they can put up some touchdowns, they might have a chance, but I don't think so. I think I'm going to go with the Rams on this one.
Okay, so there's one aspect that I really don't think that anyone's mentioned so far, and that is the crowd. This game is being played in Los Angeles, but it is expected to be, completely populated with San Francisco 49ers fans. I think most people have heard the stories, They tried to block 49ers fans from even buying tickets, and the people in LA have kind of just realized that it's inevitable. The stands will be filled with 49ers faithful. And imagine being a Rams player. Just think how much of a soul crusher that is, knowing that you don't even have fans out there to support you. And it's basically a San Francisco home game. I think that is something that can't be overlooked. I also think the 49ers offense hasn't gotten enough credit. They struggled, but, come on. It was like 10 degrees in Lambeau. I think most offenses would struggle there. So I think the 49ers come out and get back to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. Candyman, can you possibly go 2-0 this weekend?
Most offenses struggle in Lambeau, and so did the home team Green Bay Packers offense struggle in Lambeau last week. Super disappointing, Aaron and the company. But getting back to this game at SoFi, the crowd doesn't matter. Look at last week in the divisional round. If the Bills win, and we could argue they should have won very easily, all four away teams would have won the divisional round. And think about how loud it is to be an opposing team going into Arrowhead in Kansas City. Great point you brought up. LA is a implant, wishy-washy sports town. If anybody has California roots on this panel, I apologize. It's not like a Pittsburgh or Buffalo or a New York baseball town where the passion is there. I think that's kind of a sidebar. A great point that you brought up. Bosa wasn't supposed to play last week. He was questionable after the Dallas game. But played, and he had some pretty big rushes. I think he even had a sack on Aaron Rodgers. He'll be a factor. But I think the nervous jitters of the Rams are gone. They're not going to be worried about Jimmy G coming back like Tom B almost did last week. So I think the Rams get it done. I think they go to the Super Bowl. They got three bona fide defensive talents in Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, and who am I leaving out? Why am I blanking? I'm blanking, but Cam Akers hopefully gets healthy. Cooper Kupp, and you got ODB. I think they're ready to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, maybe they will, but they have to get there first. Going with the Rams.
Okay, so that will close off our pick. Short week, obviously, only 2 games. I will bring up that Brebs and Robo both can stay in contention if their 2 picks win. They've you two have picked completely different games from me, meaning that if your picks win, my picks lose. So that'll be interesting to monitor. We'll see. So anyway, we will be back next week with our or next week or in 2 weeks with our Super Bowl preview, which should be amazing. You look at these 4 teams left, I'm sure any combination of any two teams will result in an amazing Super Bowl matchup. So I think we've all loved the playoffs that we've had so far, and I'm sure this week will be just as good. For this special Overtime 2022 playoff coverage, I'm Team Money. Let the games continue.